This is a CBS News special report. I'm Chris Welch in New York. We are coming on the air with breaking news out of Washington, D.C., where a commercial airliner has collided with a helicopter in midair while on approach to Reagan National Airport. The plane then crashed into the Potomac River. It was an American Airlines flight that departed from Wichita, Kansas. And we have the following statement from the FAA. They tell us a PSA Airlines regional jet collided in midair with a Sikorsky H-60 helicopter while on approach to runway 33 at Reagan Washington National Airport around 9 p.m. local time. PSA was operating Flight 5342 for American Airlines. It departed from Wichita, Kansas. The FAA and NTSB will be investigating. The NTSB will lead the investigation. We will provide updates as information comes in. We can tell you the Sikorsky H-60 is a family of military helicopters built by Sikorsky Aircraft, also known more commonly as the Black Hawk.
This is the Nation's Conspire channel. Welcome to today's show. 67 people aboard an American Airlines plane perished overnight because it was hit by a Black Hawk helicopter. And of course, the first thing I'd like to do is give my condolences to anybody who may have been on that plane, whether it's George Glass or actual real people. We don't know yet, and we might never know. But of course, events like this do occur, and I do call these events what I believe they are. The majority of them are indeed false flags, which doesn't mean that people don't die. As most of you know, and if you don't know, you should know, our government is known for murdering its own civilians. Most of the governments around the world are responsible for murdering their own civilians. So, of course, it doesn't mean in events like this that people don't actually die. But as always, an event like this catches your attention because there's a similar theme, right? First, we see coding with numbers and numerology. Then we see other agendas tie into it if you pay attention to the news. Because remember, the news isn't there to inform you. It's there to condition you. And while this entire thing is happening, Donald Trump and the conservatives are conditioning you with what they're calling air travel safety, restoring their faith in air travel safety, which again, all ties in to AI governance. But I'll start here. If you didn't hear in that clip you just heard, runway 33 at Reagan National. So a few minutes before landing, air traffic controllers asked the arriving commercial jet if it could land on the shorter runway, which just coincidentally happens to be number 33. As most of you know, 33 is always coded in these false flag events. It is the highest number in Freemasonry, becoming a 33rd degree Freemason. It represents 1/3 of the fallen angels. And of course, it's the number they're obsessed with because it's believed to be the age that Jesus Christ was murdered. So often in false flags, we see the number 33 attached to addresses. We see the number 33 attached to the age of the perpetrator. It's usually always there. And Donald Trump released a statement as this occurred. He said the airplane was on a perfect and routine line of approach to the airport. The helicopter was going straight at the airplane for an extended period of time. It is a clear night. The lights in the plane were blazing. Why didn't the helicopter go up or down or turn? Why didn't the control tower tell the helicopter what to do instead of asking if they saw the plane? This is a bad situation that looks like it should have been prevented. Not good. And what occurred was this Black Hawk helicopter was literally targeting this specific plane. Was it targeting it because somebody on that plane had to die, or was it targeting this plane for other reasons? One thing I can show you right here is the erratic flying of this Black Hawk helicopter, and you could see how it had 3 near misses before the fatal crash. It was moving backwards, it was headed towards civilian flight paths, and it clearly looks like it was targeting this specific plane. Take a look. So the first thing people need to realize is that helicopters, military helicopters, Darpa helicopters, these things do not just randomly fly. This isn't a drone. This isn't a toy that's up in the sky. These are very expensive pieces of equipment. While money might not matter to them, building these out does actually matter to them. And for everybody out there that's starting to see where the narrative is headed, it's important to note what I'll get into after I play you these clips of Donald Trump about Lockheed Martin, about DARPA, about what your government has the capability of doing. But remember, we're talking about simple-minded people. So when they see a Black Hawk helicopter crash into a plane, when they see its weird flight pattern, when they hear the president say, this makes no sense, they're automatically playing into the minds of the sheeple, because the conservative sheeple think what automatically? DEI. DEI, right? The reason that this helicopter was erratic and it crashed is because the Biden administration had these DEI rules in place and they were hiring incompetent people. And this is the narrative for the simple-minded sheeple. Here's Donald Trump literally talking about it, but keep in mind on the screen, because that's part of this narrative that I'll get into after as well. Trump will restore faith in American air travel. That's important too. Take a look.
We do not know what led to this crash, but we have some very strong opinions and ideas, and I think we'll probably state those opinions now. Because over the years I've watched as things like this happen and they say, well, we're always investigating, and then the investigation 3 years later, they announce it. We think we have some pretty good ideas. As they put a big push to put diversity into the FAA's program. Then another article, the Federal Aviation Administration, this was before I got to office, recently, second term. The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Can you imagine? These are people that are, actually their lives are shortened because of the stress that they have. Brilliant people have to be in those positions, and their lives are actually shortened, very substantially shortened because of the stress, where you have many, many planes coming into one target.
So you have the DEI narrative already, and the common Republican sheeple will buy that hook, line, and sinker, because it's really what they want to hear, because they've gotten so agitated and irritated over the years with all these DEI hires, seeing incompetent people hired by design. We saw all the people that the Biden administration was rolling out, guys in high heels who are incompetent, who are only put in the job because they decided to dress in women's clothing. Naturally, this will make people angry because it's insanity. But if you think for 1 second that they were flying a Black Hawk helicopter with a DEI hire, think again, okay? These Lockheed Martins, these government aircrafts are autonomous. They operate without human beings needing to be inside of them. They'd rather put the trust in a computer than put it in a person. And I'm going to show you some stuff in a minute from this called the Sikorsky Matrix technology, where we have DARPA, we have Lockheed Martin bragging about and even flying a helicopter remotely at an event from 300 miles away. This is the technology that they have and they use. But they want you to be simple-minded and think, of course, that it was a DEI hire, because the agenda when you hear Trump talking about restoring faith in American air travel has everything to do with bringing in autonomous aircraft. This has been an agenda for quite some time. It's part of the reason that you've heard a lot of annoyance over the years with air travel problems, with Pete Buttigieg playing the bumbling fool, right? He's taking 6 months off for paternity leave and he's a man, right? All these things they did deliberately to get you agitated. And you wouldn't want to travel because all you hear about is how people are sleeping in the airport for days without even storms interfering. Their flights are getting delayed because of incompetency. Well, how do you solve the problem that the government itself creates? You solve it with the solution that they have for you, which is autonomous aircraft. That's what they mean when they say we'll restore faith in American air travel. Remember, Trump is bringing in AI governance. He announced it on day one that he was doing an emergency declaration for $500 billion to bring in AI infrastructure. I've warned for years about it. You don't need to listen to me to believe it. Go pay attention to what they talk about at the World Economic Forum. Go listen to their meetings, as difficult as it is to sit through because you want to pull your teeth out listening to these psychopaths. Listen to what they say. Get past the DEI. Everything is about bringing in AI governance. That is the Tower of Babel reborn. Everything connected autonomously through artificial intelligence. Even the World Economic Forum has dozens of articles how autonomous aircraft could make flying safer, easier to access, and more sustainable. They are moving us towards driverless vehicles, driverless planes. And it doesn't mean that there aren't already planes that do fly themselves. There's a lot of predictive programming movies where planes fly themselves. But let me show you the technology that they tell you a couple years ago that they have at Lockheed Martin with this matrix, how coincidental they call it the Sikorsky's matrix technology and Darpa. And they show you this stuff because they have it years and years in advance of what you even see here. The control, the capabilities that they have in this video, they're well advanced. They only show you stuff when they're about 30 or 40 years advanced. So here they are with their Black Hawk specifically, for anyone out there wondering, because the Black Hawk is the helicopter that supposedly hit the airplane. Well, here they are bragging about how they have Black Hawk helicopters that are completely autonomous. So put two and two together and realize that this was a targeted hit on a plane. There was no person flying it, but they can't tell you it was autonomous because then you wouldn't trust getting in an autonomous vehicle or an autonomous plane in the future. So they'll likely reveal it to you that it was some person who died weeks or months ago that was a DEI hire because it'll fit the narrative better and it'll make conservatives out there want what? Well, want autonomous airplanes because it's safer and they don't have to worry about unhinged lunatics flying planes or driving taxis or Ubers. That's the point. But here they are bragging specifically about this Black Hawk autonomous helicopter.
Hand in hand with the Army to modernize Black Hawk, to incorporate new technology, new capabilities to create the Black Hawk of the future. And one critical technology of all these things is autonomy. And that brings me here today.
Are we really going to fly this optimally piloted autonomous Black Hawk in Connecticut from 300 miles away right here in Washington, D.C.? And the answer is a resounding yes, we're going to.
You're going to see the aircraft come up to a stabilized hover, and this is going to simulate contested logistics operations where we would have a ground crew hooking up a sling load to the aircraft.
And this aircraft is holding position on mark.
Right? So you can see there that they have this tech. Most people should know that they have this tech. So when you hear the narrative with Trump talk about DEI, that's the narrative they want to play you into. They play on your emotions. They know it'll drive you nuts to think that you could have been on that plane. Your kids could have been on that plane. And as they reported, the people on the plane they're telling us about were figure skaters. There was dozens of figure skaters on the plane, and I'm sure that there's multiple agendas behind this. I'm sure it's about more than just having autonomous airplanes. There probably was somebody on board that plane that needed to go bye-bye. So why not kill two birds with one stone? It's no different than shooting a missile into the plane, right? It might as well have shot a missile into the plane because this couldn't be more obvious of a direct hit. You saw the plane swerving. It looked like it was targeting a specific airline, okay? It didn't go haywire. They're not going to just do this for no reason whatsoever unless they want specific people to die. Now, they might play into the Q narrative. There's some rumors out there that Trump tweeted some mysterious things and about how there's people on some of these crafts that have to go because they're a part of the deep state. They might play into that for the people who think that they're awake and aren't. But let's look at the basic narratives. How does the common person see a story like this and respond? The common person gasps, right? They think of their family. They think of themselves just going on a simple flight, right? A 3-hour flight where you feel safe. You normally feel safe. Now you don't feel safe. And you realize, I haven't felt safe flying in quite some time because I've heard so many stories about airport problems, etc., right? So the sheeple's automatically thinking in his mind, something's wrong here. Something's got to change. And then Donald Trump comes out and says, this isn't good. Something does have to change. So he immediately talks about DEI hire. So now it's got the sheeple thinking about getting on board one of these planes and not knowing what lunatic could be flying it. Thinking about some of these other stories I've covered over the years, which I've done this many times for people who have followed for years. I've covered some of these just basic stories where the guy flying the plane was drunk or the guy flying the plane pulled out a weapon and all sorts of insane stories that they put out there to plant these seeds in your mind for autonomous airplanes. And now that Donald Trump is in, we're going to start seeing everything go autonomous. This is the same thing you see right now with firing the majority of these federal workers, how they want to pay them off so that they resign from their positions. Well, who do you think they want to replace them with? Think they want to replace them with you and me? They want to replace them with artificial intelligence. Everything in global AI governance is remotely done through AI. You don't know the boogeyman behind the curtain, but you're supposed to trust in the tech. Why? Because they're going to make you think that the tech doesn't see skin color, the tech doesn't see this, or that the tech is fair and neutral and it's technology. You got to automatically trust it, just like science, right? You got to automatically trust in it. And the only way people are going to accept that is by looking around them at all the insanity that's been going on and say, you know what? I'd rather have technology fly the plane than one of these, a guy dressed up as a woman who's not qualified to fly the plane, but was hired because he decided that he's a woman today. And that's why they're doing what they're doing. They're making you accept them shoving AI down your throat because the alternative to you seems like a dangerous threat. But what really should have occurred is we should never have allowed them to even bring this type of stuff up in Congress. We should never have allowed them in the Senate on the floor to talk about what a man is and what a woman is and if men could get pregnant. But we did allow it and nothing was done. All the conservatives did was applaud some of their favorite conservatives yelling how crazy it was. But the people never did anything about it. The people should have said, hey, let me walk in. Let me barge into your conference here about men and women and what's what and who should get a job based on their gender. Hey, are we paying you to be here right now? And they go, yeah, your tax money's okay. Well, we're going to throw you out of here right now if you continue talking about this ridiculous stuff. If you start bringing up things like men being women and all this stuff, you're all fired. And we'll all remove you from office because the Constitution tells us we can do it. But of course, nobody ever did that. Mainly because they've made people fearful that they can't actually obey the Constitution because you'll get arrested for it, right? That's the whole point of the 6th day of January that they committed. So, long story short, these narratives tie into things like this. Now, this could go deeper than the stuff I just talked about. Obviously, I don't know who was on the plane. There could have been somebody that they whacked at CIA headquarters because apparently the Black Hawk left CIA headquarters beforehand. I guess it was just plugged in, getting its programming set for what it was going to go after. And they could have had somebody on board who was already deceased and threw him in the back of it just so that, it's a quick way to say that that person was on board and lost their life. They will not admit, I'll tell you that, I'll guarantee you, they will not admit that that helicopter was autonomously flying because they'll never, ever want to cast doubt in your mind about that helicopter or any type of airplane in the sky being run by a computer. They want you to be fearful of the humans. The humans are the threat. The humans are the problem. DEI hires, etc. So There's so many things suspicious about this story. Obviously, if 67 people were on board, my prayers go out to, their families, anybody affected. These things are obviously tragic when your government, goes out of their way to murder innocent civilians, which they do every single day. So doing something like that's no different than them convincing people to poison themselves or them putting chemicals in our food and our water. But most of the time, these events don't even have people on board the planes. But if you look at the way that flight was going, it clearly was targeting it. And I doubt they were targeting it just to come out and say, hey, it's a DEI hire. We got to change the way that these things actually go. I think it was more like a targeted attack with them telling you on top of that, we got to change the way things are. We got to get faith in American air travel again. And guess what? Hey, we're connecting and creating this AI infrastructure down in Texas. We can connect planes to it. We can connect cars to it. Everything will be safer. And all these conservatives won't even realize the same thing they've always complained about and been against, which is smart city governance. The same thing the World Economic Forum promotes is what they're actually allowing them to create. But because Donald Trump's behind it, they're okay with it for now. And when it's over with Donald Trump, it'll be too late to change it. It'll be your new government. So don't think for 1 second that any of this stuff out there happens coincidentally. Don't think for 1 second that there was actually a human being flying the helicopter, right? And then again, they tell us that the people on board were figure skaters. We'll never really find out who was on board. I'm sure some stuff will leak, or there'll be some conspiracies. It was somebody on board who was anti, mRNA or anti this or anti that. Somebody was probably likely targeted. Any more information comes out on this, I will continue to cover it. And remember how they code these things. Runway 33. The controllers asked them to land on a shorter runway. They changed their route and they were told to land on runway 33. It's always coded for us to see. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families as always.